Hey, and welcome to this episode of Course Correction. I am your host, Michelle, and this week I had a chance to sit down and talk to two really cool creatives, Dan Fletcher and Rebecca Lucelle of a web series on YouTube called The Pantheon. It's a really cool, kind of dry, sarcastic comedy, sort of like The Office, but it is about the Greek pantheon, which is a group of gods. Zeus, Hades, etc., so on and so forth. But these gods run a app development company. So it's kind of cool, like a little modern take on classic Greek literature. But we had a really cool conversation. We talked about writer's block and, kind of what rituals we sort of do when we get ready to become creative. So it'd be cool if you guys could stay and listen to that. And I guess just, share the episode. If you know somebody who's a creative or a writer, maybe, this is something that I think we all have experienced, writer's block. And through the course of this conversation, I hope that people will, take away some tips and just, feel better about the whole process because, you don't have to create everything today. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about our writer's woes, then just keep listening. So what's your zodiac sign?
Okay. I am a Libra.
Okay, my son is a Libra.
Okay.
I didn't realize you were a Libra. One
Yeah.
of my aunt who has encouraged me in writing since I was 12 is a Libra. I am a Taurus, so I am a Taurus, Taurus Scorpio, which apparently is a brooding and dark combination, which I think is unfortunately accurate.
Wait, how can you be a combo?
Because, so once I moved to California, I found out it's not just about your sun sign, it's also your rising sign and your moon sign. So apparently, my sun sign is Taurus, my rising sign is Taurus. I think this means that I'm stubborn, which I didn't realize until I was a little bit older. Yes, I am stubborn, which in a way is good. The flip side of stubborn is determined, right? And then, but my moon sign is in Scorpio, and this is thought to be like where the kind of like high emotionality type thing comes in, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually Sun Taurus and Moon and Rising Gemini. So I'm slightly unstable, I guess you could say. You said your aunt, who is a Libra, kind of put you on this path. So, what was your relationship like with her, and how did she, kind of pique your interest in writing?
Well, I think I'd already started writing. I was keeping a journal, but she encouraged me to do that, and we started writing letters back and forth. This was a time when more people wrote letters, but not. I don't know. I guess maybe not everybody wrote letters, but we didn't have cell phones, so we did write letters, and I think she kept all of mine. I know I kept all of hers somewhere. I don't know exactly where. And I don't remember what I would write about, to be honest with you. But she was just very encouraging and, just having somebody to talk about writing with was helpful, and it's still helpful. I still talk about writing with her. So, she's been a great encourager of me all throughout, from when I was a kid up into through my grad school program when I was getting my MFA in production at USC. She was, very encouraging of that as well. And now when I send out my newsletter, which I've sent out two of them, I started doing this quarterly newsletter this year. She'll write me back and make comments on it, and even editing type comments. And oftentimes, so I run everything I write pretty much by my wife, but I will also oftentimes run it by my Aunt Marty as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, Dan, how did you get started writing?
How did I get started writing? I don't know. Ever since I was a little kid, I'd always be like making projects, building things. I put on a lot of plays with like my siblings and my cousins. And then eventually I just started writing stuff down and got a lot of good feedback on that in school. And yeah, I eventually went to school for it and got my MFA in screenwriting. And yeah, I don't know. It's always just felt like the most natural form of expression, I guess. I don't think there was a
Yeah.
right point.
I like that. I think I've been doing a lot of writing lately. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily a writer by trade. I mean, I'm into media, of course, with podcasting, and I also put on a lot of performances growing up. So I've been doing a lot of writing lately, and I've been working on trying to revamp the blog. So my question to you guys is, I guess, like, what do you do when you get writer's block? I was going to try to come up with like a really cool word for it, but no, there is no need. So what do you guys do when you come up with nothing?
Yeah, this is such a good question. And actually, one of my writing mentors, I was really fortunate to be paired with a writing mentor through the Caucus Foundation Alumni Network last year, and his name is Jim Hirsch, and he's a television, and features writer, and we talked about this, and he basically kind of said everybody gets writer's block at some point, and this was helpful for me because I have kind of had like even like couple year periods of writer's block as far as screenwriting is concerned. And for me, I decided I had to try something else, still writing, that's part of that. So this year I kind of decided two things. One, I'm going to try and write this young adult novel. And two, I am starting this newsletter, and will both be writing outlets that are not screenwriting, so I can try and have fun with it again. Because I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to try and come up with something that was going to be like feel indie yet be commercial enough to somehow, it was just I was trying to put too much pressure, and I lost a little bit of the joy, and so I kind of have to try and get back to the joy. I think for a lot of women as well, carrying a lot of stress and then letting that affect the ability. I mean, I don't think it's just women, but I think for me as a woman, I think a lot of the women I know, we're putting there's external pressure, and we're putting a lot of internal pressure on ourselves as well. And that can, if you let all those negative voices kind of keep you in that loop, then it's hard to actually get out of that and be productive and feel confident in moving forward.
Yeah, for writer's block, I like to maintain this like pyramid of procrastination. Where I'll have like 3 or 4 different projects like kind of all up in the air at the same time. So if I ever become blocked on one, I like the other one's right there to move on to. And in the inverse, it's like, oh, well, I could work on this one really hard thing, or I could this other thing is kind of just sparking more joy. I'm kind of a little more invested in it, so I can work on like project one a little bit more. And then if I'm like scared to go back, like yeah, the expectations of like, oh man, like everything you write needs to be like better than the thing you wrote before, and that like really weighs on you. And so it's like, oh man, if anything becomes overwhelming, there are these other balls you can kind of pick up and keep moving. And I find that to be helpful. And the other thing is like really it's the habit of it. Like once I can find myself in time where I've been like writing every day, and like maybe it's only an hour, maybe it's a little bit more, but like just if a little bit of time passes, you get that fear like, oh man, how did I ever do this in the first place? I'll never be able to do it again, or everything I ever wrote is terrible. And
I'm just gonna throw it all away.
Yeah, exactly. And like I'm done, everything's spent. But it's like, oh well, I did this yesterday. I'm just picking it back up as I go along. And one little trick I always do is whenever I finish for the day, you always want to leave a little bit left in the tank. You never want to just be like you want to at least. I'll always know at least the first sentence or the first line of dialogue or something I want to write the next day.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll often like just as I type, I'll just like stop mid word, so that I know when I pick it up again, I can immediately start typing.
Okay, I like that.
The muscle memory of it just gets you right back in.
I'm gonna have to try that. I don't do that. Try that.
Yeah, it doesn't work all the time, but it works enough that that I stick with it.
Yeah, I like that. And I was going to say this, Rebecca, to your point about feeling stress and needing to unplug. Like, even just producing this show
Mhm.
causes me to have that feeling. I'm
Mm.
like, oh, like Dan said, oh, it's terrible. I just need to throw it away. And it's because, I'm in this space of creativity. So I'm trying to, I want to make sure that what I'm putting out is connecting with the people who are listening to it, and they're teaching them something, because really that's kind of what, that's why I do this conversationally, because it gives me a chance to learn something, and then it also allows you guys to show your personality. But sometimes I feel like I'm boring, or it's boring, or it's going to be boring. And so I have this block that says, well, maybe I shouldn't do that because people won't like it. But then I kind of have to go back to, am I doing it just to make sure that people like it? Or am I doing it because this is my truth? You know what I mean?
No, I think that's really well said, and I think the same applies for film or writing. And that voice of am I going to offend somebody? Is everyone going to like this? By extension, are they going to like me? And it's
Mhm.
hard to quiet that voice, but you know, but we do have to make stuff that we believe in and stand by it. You know, um, until a point where we don't anymore, if we get to that point, and then just kind of go from there.
So what would you guys say you want to, I guess, the message that you want to deliver with your web series Pantheon?
Well, I mean, I think one, it's supposed to be a fun show, right? So hopefully people are watching it and they're getting kind of this quirky world of gods, but living in a modern day. And what would gods be doing in the modern day? Well, they'd be designing apps, right?
Yeah.
And I know Dan can say more about that as well, as far as from, what sparked the idea and everything for that. But so part of it is just fun. But then beyond that, the characters are updated. They're kind of a more modern take on characters. So I don't know if we can curse on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. It's totally not suitable for work.
So Hades has a line in the first episode where she says, "Surprise, Hades is a girl." And so I think through the characters we want to kind of show a more modern world, where Poseidon is gender fluid, and
Right.
Hades is a girl, and it's sort of, the pantheon is inhabited by all kinds of people, but if you're looking for yourself represented in god form, there is maybe somebody that you might relate to, perhaps.
Yeah, I actually liked that Hades was a girl. And not to say that I just felt so connected to her, but I did feel like there was there was also the human aspect there, especially in episode 4, where she was like, okay, so now I feel like I made everything a mess,
Mm-hmm.
and now I have to try to fix it. I mean, I could definitely relate to that, because I mean, that's like every day where you're like, oh shit, I made this error. Now I have to go back and, readjust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's next? Like, there's going to be a second season, right?
Of course. How could there not be? But yeah, like we're like there's still some more pieces that need to fall into place for that to happen. We're working on it. There is definitely a lot of story left to tell. And like the world, like just working on it. There's just ideas just like constantly coming up, because like there's the Greek pantheon, there's other pantheons like Egyptian, voodoo, like all these possible.
What, voodoo?
What?
You said voodoo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. That's out there, like Papa Legba and all that.
Yeah. I'm not gonna dive into all my isms, but I'm in a lot of spiritual groups, and Papa Legba is like a major topic and
Mm.
always coming up.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's an interesting figure. I actually wrote a script once where he was a major character, but
Really?
yeah,
You should put that out.
I should. I should. It's like a big like $200 million Lord of the Rings level fantasy set in New Orleans. So it's a hard sell. I really need to watch the new. Well, speaking of Greek mythology, I know there's that new musical out right now, Hades Town.
Oh wow, okay.
Which people are going nuts about, and I know that it might step on my script a little bit, but
Oh,
at least it'll be a cool thing to watch. Where it's
you know, that was something I was going to bring up, is that when we are in our creative space and we're working, do you guys ever feel like you're working too hard to come up with something brand new when there are so many other ideas that can be built on?
Say more about that.
Well, I mean, like I feel like for me, I spend a lot of time trying to like come up with something really, really fresh,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to maybe taking something that's already out there, like a not like a movie, but like maybe like a show idea, something that's a little bit dry to me. And I'm like, oh, I could spice this up like XYZ. But then I feel like there's something that stops me from doing that because I feel like it's not authentic. Like, does that ever happen to you guys?
Yes. For me, it does.
well, I mean, that's what we did with the Pantheon. I mean, that's all. Everyone knows those characters. Everyone knows their backstories, and we just picked up on that and ran with it. Because I think there is something to like, the idea that like, oh, okay, we have what, like 10 or so minutes to tell a story on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and a character spins around in a chair and says like, "Hi, I'm Hades." You're like, a lot of the legwork has been done, saying like, I kind of know who this is.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's a little something different going on, but like I'm halfway there to meet you. So I don't, yeah, but like, I mean, because I think like even if say it's you're writing like a sitcom about like four friends living in an apartment, like I do think just whether you want to or not, like some of your authentic voice will always just bleed through.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is similar. It's you almost something that you're not authentic, because it's like you have to either research it enough that you know it and relate to it, or you have to find some part of you that relates to it in order just to execute it, because otherwise it's just too hard,
Yeah.
It's, I would say, impossible almost in a way. So finding a way that you connect to the material, at least for me, is critical.
Yeah. Do you guys have any writing rituals that help you get connected to whatever is going to flow?
I do. Mine consists of so the ideal writing day is like I get to go for a walk or a hike, and then I meditate and drink coffee and then I'm like ready to go. That's kind of my ideal day, but it doesn't happen very often for a wide variety of
Right.
reasons.
Yeah, coffee is a big part of it. I also really like writing out in public, going to like coffee shops or parks and stuff like that, where it feels like you're still kind of in communication with the world a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like just sitting at your desk, like in a room, like nothing but my cats around. Like it feels a little confined. So it's nice to break out a little bit.
Well, and I kind of feel like, and this is going to sound totally crazy, but I'm going to say it anyway. I kind of feel like ideas, when they come to you, they're only for that time, and then boom, it could go to the next person. If the next person says, "Oh yeah, I can move on this," you've missed it. But I think that might be the way the energy travels when you're in public, when you're out, when you're doing your creative thing. I mean, I think that's a great place to be when you're writing, because imagine all of that different energy right there. You never know what's going to say, boom, like ping you almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually a really cool way of thinking about it. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of sometimes feel like when you're tapped in and you get into that kind of flow state, then yeah, it's like ideas will come. Like I had a day like that last week where I had like three different ideas that I thought were pretty good, and I was like, I don't, I don't know why these are coming today. Like something about the day, who knows? Like maybe it's the stars. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're just like you're tapped in, and I think a lot of creative people describe something similar. So I think you're onto something the way you're describing it.
Yeah, because there was somebody not too long ago. I listened to a lot of what most people would probably find wonky on YouTube or, personal development stuff. And there was somebody saying that whenever, I can't remember who it was, but whenever they sit down to do work, they're in a state of almost like meditation, and the ideas just flow. Like they're not their ideas, they're coming from the source. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like they just flow out onto the paper because there's no resistance, there's no stopping it. It's just there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I find it's association, or often free association, where it's like you gotta, it's the world, it's acknowledging what's going on in the world around you and then connecting it back to your own experiences, and then the creativity is like just a strange alchemy as those two substances kind of interact with each other.
Yeah. I like that. Very good, Dan. So when are you guys going to drop the season 2, or are we just going to have to wait for that?
It'll be a little bit for sure. Like the process of making the episodes is we do it like just like a regular network TV show where we write it out, we film it, post production, all the little special effects and all that, and it's it takes a while. We just want to make sure we do it right. So yeah.
No, I totally understand that.
Yeah, and definitely just enjoy the episodes that are out there, the new ones that come when they come. But yeah, do we know what season 2 is going to be about? Yes.
And is that also a surprise?
I think so. I think so. Right.
Okay. So I had some people ask some questions about kind of how to get started. Like whenever you're trying to produce a web series or even write one, what would you say the first thing that you should do is?
Tell people about it and get feedback. Because I think the right ideas will spark a certain energy when you talk to people about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to need a lot of that energy to carry the thing through to the end. And if it's like if it's an idea and you keep getting a lot of pushback and a lot of resistance, it's going to make it just that much harder. But if it's something you truly believe in, I think that'll eventually come through. But definitely have your aunt, your I think a lot of people call them like beta readers.
Mm-hmm.
Folks who really truly value their feedback, and just chat with them about the idea and just see kind of what they take to and what they don't.
Yeah, kind of like a light survey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because eventually, like at the end of the day, you're not going to get some $200 million budget to make this thing happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be something that a lot of people can find an entryway into and want to be a part of.
So what kind of equipment did you start with? Did you have high dollar equipment, or did you just use what you had available?
We were really lucky to call in favors of, we're out in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of folks who know somebody who has a cool camera. And, we did a Kickstarter for the pilot.
Okay.
And second episode. And so we had a little bit of budget to fill in the gaps, but it's definitely, you got to find there are a lot of resources online for when we ran into an issue, we're like, oh, we need a X, Y, or Z. and we want to rent it, and you just go to blah blah blah.com and you can rent a thing for a little bit. So you won't be able to get everything, but yeah, we were very lucky to have access to some cool tech to make it happen. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is very interesting. Like the cameras we use in the first 2 episodes versus the last 2 episodes are very different in terms of their like scope and size. Um, but I don't think, and maybe if you blow the 2 episodes up on like the big screen or something, you might see the difference. But I don't know. I don't think it really is the equipment at the end of the day as much as it is the vision of the people behind it.
I have been, since we sort of, well, since I always say we, I know people are probably like, no, she knows it was just her. But since I changed the format, I've been pretty much just using Skype on my phone, mostly because I'm so busy, but also because I don't have all of the same equipment I had before. But I was talking to my boyfriend, and he was like, well, the content is really what's going to push it. It's not always going to sound amazing, and that's okay. As long as you're consistently producing the content with purpose. So I agree with that, Dan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like as long as there's not like, a dentist drill going on in the background, and like if people can see it, they can listen to it. That's all that really matters.
Yeah.
That just would be a different kind of web series.
Yeah. Dentist web series? Yeah, I don't know about that.
It would probably be like a horror story, like it came from the back. Like but yeah, so after your newsletter, Rebecca, what is your next project, you think?
So I'm trying to write this young adult novel this year, and it's a science fiction novel about a girl growing up in space and her growing up on Mars, I should say, and her father has disappeared the night after her 12th birthday, and then her mom puts her on a spaceship and tells her, meet me on Earth. And so she has to uncover what is going on, and she has to navigate through space with her robot, and figure out a bunch of stuff. So obviously it takes place in the future, and so far I've been having a lot of fun with it. So that's the big project that I hope to complete writing, ideally by the end of the summer, as far as a first draft. I'm a little bit behind on where I wanted to be with it, but I'm also trying to keep it light and keep it fun and kind of explore, since I've never written a novel before. So let me know if I'm talking too fast as well. I always end up talking really fast, so I can try and if need be. But yeah, so I've been trying to have fun with it, and so far that's been going pretty well. Then I got really busy, and I didn't get much writing done in the last like 6 to 8 weeks. But now I think I'm okay to like get back to it in a more regular way. So I'm excited about that. And then I have a short film that is on Amazon right now, Amazon Prime. It's called Gender Freak. It's my thesis short film, and we just have been a part of the Amazon All Voices Film Festival, and we don't know if we'll be advancing in that. We won't find out until July. But either way, that project has already been out for 7 years, so it's there. But it has been, I have a feature film that is also about LGBTQ teenagers, and I'm trying to find funds for that film. So ideally we make it as soon as possible, but we are still looking for funding. So that's kind of where things are with that.
So have you guys thought about crowdsourcing for that one?
We have thought about it. And I've been a part of 6 successful crowdfunding campaigns, mostly for film. One was for a medical, it was a medical fundraiser. And I know what it takes to do crowdfunding, and therefore I approach it warily.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
It's a full-time job.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just because my friends and family, well, me and my wife's friends and family have been so supportive, and at least the way I know how to do crowdfunding, it starts with your base of people, you know, and I do feel like I accidentally did three crowdfunding campaigns in 1 year in 2015. That was not the goal. I wasn't planning to do any, but it happened, and they were all successful. And one of the some people actually donated to all of them. And I couldn't even believe it. Like, I didn't expect that. So I was very grateful for that, but I also don't want to put people in that position, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just this balance. And we have another project that is more my wife's project, but I'm also helping her with it. It's more of a tech project that we may want to do crowdfunding for. So the timing has always been like, well, if we're going to do crowdfunding, which one would we do it for and when would we do it? And so I've been holding back, but probably I would have to do crowdfunding. We'd probably have to do crowdfunding at least for like the very first money in for the feature film, but we want to try and get some other stuff sort of lined up as possibilities to kind of, because sometimes if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign but you have some other money lined up, then it works better because you kind of have like a matching grant almost in a way, and that kind of helps the success of the crowdfunding campaign. So we're kind of we're looking at it, but not going to jump into it, half formed. It's got to be thought through, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure. And like Dan said, I mean, that's a full-time job because you're having to talk about that constantly. I mean, and then when do you talk about anything else?
Right.
But
Exactly.
I have a psychic friend who has been on the show a couple times, but he's like my spiritual mentor also. But he's like, I don't have to create everything right now. You know what I mean? So I like that you guys are like, well, I mean, it'll come, because I think that's the thing, is that for people who want to do web series and podcasting and writing, they feel like it must be finished right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case. And it's like, Dan is very adamant about not telling me when season 2 is going to come out. And that's good, but it's like, it doesn't have to be done right now, and he doesn't have to give me a date right now because it will come.
Right.
So like, what advice do you guys have for up and coming screenwriters, writers, on when they feel like they have to be creating all the time and everything has to be finished right now? What advice would you give someone who's just starting out?
Someone who's feeling like overwhelmed with the need to have everything. It's not about having everything, it's about having the right thing.
Mm.
And maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, with because there are some folks who are successful who can just churn out like project after project, and then one of them will hit the wall. But I mean, I find if you just keep coming up to people like, hey, do you like this? Hey, do you like this? Hey, do you like this? And like once they've said no so many times, they're not going to go check out the next thing.
Mm.
You try to shove at them. So like it's really just like finding the right project, and if something's not ready, it's not ready. Just put it in a drawer and let it sit there. And maybe 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll find an idea. You'll pull it out of the drawer. You'll spruce it up a bit, and now it's perfect. But like just trying to force it, I don't think that'll make anyone happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also add, for me, probably one of the reasons that I feel like, and this is something that I used to beat myself up with, which I don't think is very useful ultimately, is like, oh, I should be doing more. Well, truth be told, like, it took me a while to find my footing and even get a job that, you know, takes care of the basics. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have your basics met as far as financial stability before you can then really create more freely. I mean, I'm not saying you can't be creative if, even if you're hungry or whatever, because certainly people are, but it definitely helps a lot if you're not consumed with how will I survive. then it's a lot easier to kind of to focus on writing something or getting something out there in a more organized way. It's definitely useful.
And so yeah, I definitely don't subscribe to the myth of the starving artist. That like
No.
you can be just as creative with a roof over your head and a full belly than the alternative.
I think what it is that you, of course, for me, because I work full time also, and I have my creative consulting firm and podcasting and all this other jazz. I always feel like when I'm at work, I get ideas, right? But I may not be able to catch it before it goes away. And I'm like, that could have been it. So I think some people, they're like, if I'm at work, I can't be in my most creative space. But then again, you're also, like you said, be starving.
Right.
Wow.
But I mean, at least for me, even if I'm on the go, I carry a little notebook in my purse and have my notes. You know what I mean? Or sometimes if I'm driving, I'll record a voice memo, and sometimes I don't even go back and listen to it. But because I recorded it in that moment, I can remember it and then go back to it. And so for me, that's been helpful, just to like jot it down even on the fly.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and it's tough. And you gotta, I don't know, I do think there is a little bit of strategy to it. Like, to find the job to pay the bills. Like if you're doing something where, you're just too burnt out at the end of the day to, to go back to the pen and paper, like, that's tough. And that like I mean, definitely, I don't know.
Find a new job.
Yeah, it's finding the right job too. And it's tough. And it's tough because, sometimes you do just got to pay the bills, take the crummy job and do it. But like when you're lucky enough to have a choice, it's about like finding the gig that'll leave you with enough creative juice at the end of the day to like take that little nugget you found halfway through your shift and be able to expand upon it that night right when you get home.
Right. And then even if you need to like leave it, like you said, and finish it later, at least that you've gotten it somewhat of the way out. Because I think for me, it's like when I can't get my ideas out onto the paper, I feel like they plague me almost, just kind of banging in there, like showing up, like write me down, write me down, write me down. So I think holding on to the notebook, being strategic about what kind of day job you have, I think that would probably, that would help me. That's who I'm trying to help today. I'm trying to help me.
Yeah.
So what else do you guys want the audience to know about the Pantheon?
Yeah, I mean, they should definitely watch it if they haven't. It's youtube.com/the Pantheon. Yeah, no, it was it's a goofy comedy on one level, but I do think there is, I do think we do tell a real story, and I do think the characters, reflect, a little slice of the human condition in a certain way. Like, I think partly what I discovered about the show as we were making it was like it really, for me, where I found it as a valuable outlet is that, like, we spend so much of our time at work that, for a lot of people, and definitely for me, like I would say, like, okay, I have my life and then I'm at work and my life stops while I'm at work and then it picks up again when I get home. But like, living consciously while you're at work and the relationships you build with people there, even if they're not your supernatural family members, is still like a very important part of everyone's life.
I had a lot of fun working on the Pantheon. Well, I've known Dan for a while because we're in a writing group together, and I just really like the quality of the script. And then once I met the actors are really talented and really funny and really know their characters and do a really good job. So it was really fun, and it does feel it is like sort of like the Pantheon family, and for me, as a woman director and coming into a set, a series where you already have the show basically established, it's a good experience, I think, as a director to have to adjust to working within that context. And but it also was very welcoming for me. And so, in certain contexts, I have felt as a woman, director, where I was kind of like the salmon swimming upstream. But in this case, not at all. In this case, it was easy, it was fun, it was a really neat experience. So I'll say that about it as well.
I'll just add, yeah, like definitely one of the best things about it was that as the show was going on, like ideas would just come from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone, like from the actors to, our costume designer to crew, like, people would be inspired and be able to like find ways to add their voice to like the stew that was the show. That was really cool.
I think that happens a lot whenever, like I said, kind of whenever there are a lot of people kind of, I wouldn't say cloistered together, but together working towards something. So that's kind of what I try to do whenever I'm consulting is, sit down with the person that is kind of stuck. Like I typically work with people who are wanting to create, but they're halted. So I just add my juice to their juice and we just make some more juice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of happens when, this is going to sound kind of churchy, but when one or more get together and people are doing something creative, I think that the ideas just kind of, they just flow.
Mhm.
So yeah, I know I'm a little bit weird, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, I do think there are negative situations where like if certain people at certain parts of the organization aren't open to that, they can stifle that creativity.
Oh, definitely.
So I do think it's something to always be conscious of.
Mhm.
Yes, agreed.
Well, I was curious. Maybe your listeners already know this, so feel free not to answer if you don't want to. But how did you get into that? That's a really cool, I guess, line of work to kind of help people access their creativity. And I was just curious how you got started on it.
I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. I was sitting, and I think this was probably in November or December, and people would always come to me asking me for, advice on media projects or, anything really. And I thought to myself, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I feel like it's important for us to find our purpose.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think my purpose is to help other people produce creative thought or to come up with ideas. Like sometimes I think I have so many ideas because they're not all for me.
Mhm.
And that's kind of why I like to connect with others because my idea may be for you. You know what I mean? It might not even be for me. It just came to me. That's why I said that about sort of the way ideas kind of travel, because I feel like there's no possible way that you can sit at home and think, man, it would be really cool to do XYZ. And then 2 months later, you see someone doing it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I look at it. So I just sort of said, if people want help, because I know for me, sitting by myself trying to come up with something creative, it can be a struggle.
Mhm.
So I just want to help others if they need help, And actually, no, I haven't really shared that before. So thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah. Sure. That's really neat.
But
I'm sorry,
And-
Dan. Was that heavy?
Okay.
Was that too spiritual? I feel like God spoke to me and said I need to help people create.
It's all good. It's fascinating. Yeah, because it's true. Because like I think we were kind of talking about it before, where it's like none of creativity doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about it. It's human beings bouncing off one another. It's
Right. Right. Especially if you think of things in terms of energy or the way that they, the flow and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
I was just gonna say, Dan, you should talk about your upcoming projects too. Yes, in addition to the Pantheon season.
Sure. Yeah, next for me, I'm working on a scripted audio drama podcast.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So something like there was that Julie Roberts movie or TV show, Homecoming. It's based on a scripted podcast. Different tone that I'm working on. I don't know. We're crewing up and casting it right now. I haven't talked about it publicly anywhere before, but I guess since we're already casting, so I guess there's casting notices up there. But so what it is, it's drawing on my Mexican heritage and my lifelong love of professional wrestling and masked Mexican wrestlers.
Okay, Lucha Libre.
Yes, and it takes very heavy inspiration from the old Lucha Libre movies that were made in Mexico back in the 60s and 70s that starred guys like El Santo and Blue Demon, and where you get these Mexican wrestlers in these like crushed 70s red velvet suits who were fighting like vampires and werewolves. And it's taking that into the podcast world, and and it's a very fun show. But I do think the characters get some humanity to them as well, despite the goofiness.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So expect that not too far in the future.
There you go again.
Yeah, yeah. We'll be recording it this summer.
You're vague. You're like, one day, Michelle, you'll hear from me.
Yeah, someday. I mean, even with the Pantheon, we had things where like, oh, okay, we're gonna come out. Episode 4 is gonna drop. June whatever, and then I think like one morning there was like some like tragic news that came out, some like national news or something, and we're like, oh no, we can't release our funny sitcom on this otherwise sad day. And so like they were like, oh no, okay, no, everyone, it's going to be a week from now. And so it's definitely made me a hard day.
Soft date.
Yeah. Soft
estimate. I'll never know. Just text me whenever everything comes out.
Will do.
But I was just talking to someone who she's actually, I think maybe this one. I was going to advertise for her. She's actually an author. She wrote a book, and of course she wrote a book. She's an author, but she was just we were talking over some different ideas, and I was telling her that if it was really, really good, then maybe she should think about doing a scripted podcast. So it's interesting that you brought that up, because I think that's going to be like the new wave. I think we're going to kind of roll back to audio, kind of like how old school radio was. And I think that's just going to be the thing. So I'm down for this, and I'm really excited, and I hope it works out well for you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
No, that's what's in the air.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell everybody how to find you guys specifically?
Sure. I'm at rlouisl on Instagram. It's RLOUIS as in Sam, E, L as in Lisa, L as in Lisa. And I'm at Rebecca Writer Director on Facebook. And Gender Freak, the short film, is on Amazon.
Okay. I am DV Fletcher on Twitter and Instagram. D as in dog, V as in victory. And you can watch the Pantheon. It's at Pantheon Series on Twitter and Instagram, and then youtube.com/the Pantheon to actually watch it.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. And you know what? And I say this every week to myself, because I'll probably cut this out, but I'm just going to tell you guys. Every week I get stressed out right before I have to record because of like I said, kind of that creative, is it going to be good? Mm-hmm. And every week I'm almost like, I'm going to talk myself out of even doing it. And then every week I have like a really bomb conversation with new people. And so I just thank you.
Okay, so that was today's episode. I appreciate everybody for staying to listen. And if you are still here right now, send me a note, send me an email, shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook. Just let me know you guys are listening and, continue to share with your friends. Don't keep it a secret. Share it with everyone you know. That is still true. All right. Thanks. Bye.